I played video games with my best friend, and he found out I'm gay. It started like every other night. Just two best friends, controllers in hand, trash-talking over pizza, and grinding through another late-night co-op session. But something shifted. The way his eyes lingered a little longer on mine during a pause screen. The way my hand brushed his when we reached for the same soda. It was subtle, almost nothing. But not to me. Because I had a secret. And that night, I think he found it out. What happened next wasn't part of the game. It was real. Tense, magnetic. And it changed everything between us. Before we dive into this story, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. We've got so many stories like this, raw, real, and full of heart, that you don't want to miss. We had done this 100 times before, maybe more. His place, Friday night, 2 controllers, and whatever multiplayer game we were addicted to that week. The rhythm was always the same. Greasy takeout, bad jokes, trash talk, and a slow descent into sleepy laughter until one of us crashed on the couch. That night didn't feel different, not at first. Tyler was sprawled across the floor, his back against the edge of the couch, one leg stretched out like he owned the room. He always sat like that, like he didn't have a single thing to prove to anyone. His brown curls were a mess, his hoodie half-zipped, showing the white tee that clung just a little tighter than usual. I tried not to look. I'd gotten good at that, at not looking too long, not letting my eyes wander when he changed shirts in front of me, not reacting when he joked about girls or relationships and I had nothing to say. He didn't know. No one did. But it was getting harder to hide. "Dude, you suck at this level," Tyler said, grinning at me as we both respawned for the 3rd time. "Maybe I'm just letting you win," I shot back, keeping my voice steady. He laughed, loud and genuine. "Sure you are." I couldn't help but smile. His laugh always hit me in a weird place, somewhere in my chest, like a knock on a locked door I didn't want to open. We played for another hour, the room filled with glowing screens and the sound of gunfire and explosions. But underneath it all, I was hyper-aware of how close we were. Our knees touched a few times, casual, unintentional, but I felt every one of those moments like sparks under my skin. When we finally lost for good, Tyler groaned and dropped his controller. "Screw this game," I laughed. "Same time next week?" But he didn't answer right away. Instead, he tilted his head and looked at me. Really looked. "You've been weird lately," he said. My heart stalled. "Weird?" I asked, too quickly. "Yeah, like distant. You don't talk about girls anymore. You get super quiet when stuff gets personal, and you've been flinching every time I get near you." I swallowed. "I don't flinch." Tyler didn't move. "You do, and I don't care if something's going on. I just wish you'd tell me." I tried to laugh it off. "Maybe I'm just tired." But my voice cracked on that last word. And he noticed. He shifted onto his knees, now right in front of me, inches away. "Hey, talk to me. You know I don't judge." I looked away, down at my hands. My palms were sweaty. My heart felt like it might break through my ribs. "It's nothing," I whispered. Tyler reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're lying." That was it. The pressure, the silence, the weight I'd been carrying for years. It cracked. "I'm gay," I said, soft, barely more than breath. "And I've been scared out of my mind to tell you." For a moment there was nothing, just the low hum of the game menu in the background and the thump of my pulse in my ears. Then Tyler did something I didn't expect. He smiled. "Okay," he said. "Okay?" I repeated, stunned. "Yeah. Okay, I mean, dude, you think I'd care? You're still you." I blinked at him. You're not weirded out?" "Why would I be?" he asked, a little softer now. "You're my best friend. If this is you being real with me, then I'm glad." I exhaled, everything inside me trembling. Then he added, "But, I guess now's a bad time to tell you I kinda always wondered." That made me freeze. I looked at him. His eyes were searching mine now, not with judgment, but something else, something warmer. Before I could speak, he leaned in just a little. Not a kiss. Not yet. But close enough to make my head spin. "Is that why you never wanted to share the couch with me?" he asked, teasing. My voice was barely steady. "Maybe." He chuckled again, softer this time. "Well, maybe we change that tonight." My breath caught, and then the doorbell rang. The sound of the doorbell pulled us both back to earth. Tyler blinked, leaning away slightly like he'd just realized how close we were. I tried to act casual, but my skin was buzzing, my chest too tight to fake normal. He stood up, brushing his hand through his curls. "Probably my sister. She said she might swing by and grab her charger." I nodded, but I couldn't even speak. My mouth had gone dry. He walked out of the room, leaving me alone with the flickering menu screen and a heart that wouldn't slow down. Had that really just happened? He didn't freak out. He didn't pull away. He smiled, and then leaned in like maybe he'd thought about it too. I buried my face in my hands. Everything inside me was twisted up, tangled between relief and panic. I had finally said it out loud. To him. The one person I'd been most afraid to lose. And now, I didn't know what to do with the fact that he was still here. I heard muffled voices by the front door. A few minutes later, Tyler came back in holding a bag of chips like nothing earth-shattering had just happened. "She says hi," he said, tossing the bag on the coffee table. I nodded, still sitting where he'd left me, hands clasped tightly in my lap. I didn't know if I should joke or apologize or pretend it hadn't happened. Tyler flopped back down onto the floor, this time closer than before. His knee brushed against mine again, and he didn't move it. Neither did I. "So," he said, stretching the word out, "you want to keep playing? Do you?" "Not really," he said, then glanced at me. "Unless you want to." I looked at him, really looked, searching his face for signs of awkwardness, discomfort, anything that told me he was just trying to be nice, but he wasn't looking away. He was watching me like he had a question he didn't know how to ask. "Why did you say you always wondered?" I asked finally, my voice quiet. He scratched the back of his neck like he always did when he was nervous. "I don't know. Little stuff, I guess. The way you looked at me sometimes. The way you never talked about dating girls like ever." I smiled faintly. "I thought I was being subtle." He laughed. "You were. That's the thing. You never acted different. But there was something in your eyes, man. I guess I just kinda hoped." That made me pause. "Hoped?" I repeated, my heart in my throat. Tyler gave me a lopsided smile, suddenly unsure of himself in a way I'd never seen before. "Yeah, I mean, I never said anything because I didn't want to mess things up, but you've always been, I don't know, different, comfortable." I blinked, not sure if I was breathing anymore. He leaned back against the couch, head tilted toward the ceiling. "I guess part of me always wondered what it'd feel like to just try something with you." I stared at him, frozen. This couldn't be real. He turned his head toward me again, eyes softer now. "I'm not saying I know what I am. I'm not labeling anything. But if you ever wanted to, I don't know, see where this goes, I wouldn't be against it." Silence fell between us, but it wasn't the kind that hurt. It was the kind that vibrated with potential. Like something had just shifted in the air, and we were both waiting to see what came next. I moved without thinking. My hand found his. He didn't pull away. His fingers curled around mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I've wanted that," I said, almost in a whisper. "For a long time." He looked at me again, and this time, there was no doubt in his eyes. "I know." Then, with the game still paused and the night stretching out in front of us, he leaned in and kissed me. Not rushed, not unsure, just real. But before either of us could say anything more, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "My ex just texted me," he said slowly. "She says she's outside." My chest tightened. He looked at me, conflicted. "What do I do?" I didn't answer right away. Tyler sat there holding his phone, fingers clenched just a little tighter around the screen than necessary. The name glowing in the notification was one I knew, Mia. She had been around the previous summer. I'd seen the way he looked at her, and I'd told myself back then, don't hope for more. But now he had just kissed me, and I had kissed him back. That hadn't been confusion. That wasn't a mistake. Still, I felt the weight of that message pressing down on both of us like a cold wind sneaking in through a window we forgot to close. "She said she's outside?" I finally asked. Tyler nodded. "She's in her car. Says she needs to talk." I tried to keep my face steady. "Do you want to talk to her?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared down at his phone. I watched his chest rise and fall slowly, his jaw clenching as if he was fighting himself from the inside out. "I don't know," he said. "This is just a lot." I stood up, my hand slipping from his. "Yeah, it is," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cracked anyway. I turned toward the bathroom. I didn't want him to see my face, how fast everything inside me had gone from warm to cold. "Wait," he said. I froze. He stood too, his voice lower now. "I'm not saying I regret anything. I wasn't expecting any of this." I looked back at him. "You kissed me." "I know," he said, "and I meant it. But now she's here. I didn't ask her to come. That doesn't change the fact that she did." He rubbed the back of his neck, pacing. "You think I'm choosing her?" I shook my head. "I think you don't know what you want." That made him stop. "You're right," he said. "But I want to find out. With you." For a second I believed him, and then I heard the knock. The front door. He looked at me. "What should I do?" "I can't answer that for you," I said. "But I'm not going to be your secret, Tyler." He swallowed hard, nodding. He walked to the front door. I sat back down, staring at the paused game on the screen like it could save me. I heard the door open. Then silence. I imagined her standing there, wet hair from the light rain, that soft voice of hers asking if he was okay. I imagined her stepping inside, the familiar scent of her perfume, the way she used to curl into him on that very couch. I didn't realize my hands were shaking until I saw the controller vibrating in my grip. A few minutes passed. Then I heard footsteps, and the door closed. Tyler came back in, slowly, like he wasn't sure if he'd be welcomed. "She asked if I was alone," he said. "And?" "I told her I wasn't." I looked up. "What did she say?" "She left." "Just like that?" "Yeah," he said, sitting next to me again. "She said she figured this would happen eventually." I stared at him. "You didn't invite her in?" "No." I sat in silence for a second. Then I asked the one thing I couldn't hold back anymore. "Why did you kiss me?" He leaned in again, elbows on his knees, his voice low. "Because when I look at you, I feel something I never did with anyone else, not even her. Because you see me, and maybe I've been scared of that." My throat tightened. "I've been scared too." He turned to me. "So what do we do?" I didn't have an answer. But then, he reached for my hand again. This time it felt different, like a decision had been made. But just as our fingers laced together, the front window lit up with the flash of a camera. A silhouette was outside, standing near the bushes. Tyler jumped to his feet. "Was that—" Another flash. Someone had taken a photo of us. Tyler moved fast, bolting toward the front door like something in him had snapped. I was 2 steps behind, my heart racing, not from the kiss this time, but from the cold rush of fear that someone, somewhere, had just captured something that wasn't meant for the world yet. When we flung the door open, the street was empty. Rain had started to fall, soft and slow, like a whisper against the concrete. The bushes by the window rustled gently, but there was no one there. Whoever had been outside was gone. Tyler stepped barefoot onto the porch, scanning the dark, his jaw clenched. "You saw it too, right? The flash?" I nodded. "Yeah, someone was there." He paced, hands on his hips, staring out into the night like he could force the shadows to confess. "Was it Mia?" I didn't answer right away. It made sense. She had shown up uninvited, said she needed to talk, and now, just minutes later, someone had snapped a photo of us holding hands. But still, I didn't want to accuse without knowing. "She's the only one who knew you weren't alone," I said carefully. Tyler nodded, running his fingers through his soaked curls. "And if it was her—" I looked at him. "Then what happens now?" He didn't answer. We stood outside a little longer, the rain picking up, until it soaked through our shirts and made the whole night feel even more unreal. Then we went back inside, locked the door, and sat in silence on the couch, closer than before, but somehow with more distance between us. The warmth from before was gone, replaced by something heavier. "I don't want this to get out like that," I said finally. "Not like some tabloid headline." Tyler turned toward me, his eyes softer now. "You think I'd let that happen?" "I don't know," I admitted. "You haven't exactly figured out what this is yet." He exhaled slowly. "You're right, I haven't. But I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. I'm not going to pretend you didn't happen." Those words should have comforted me. Maybe they even did. But part of me was still bracing for impact, still afraid that whoever had taken that photo could ruin everything before it had even begun. The next morning, Tyler texted Mia. I saw the screen light up while we were sitting in his kitchen eating leftover pizza. He didn't try to hide it from me. That alone said something. "Did you take the picture?" he typed. There was no typing bubble, no response. Hours passed. Nothing. By evening, I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that we could still figure things out quietly, just the two of us. But when Tyler checked his phone again and went still, I knew something had happened. He held it up, showing me the screen. There it was, a blurry photo posted to her story. Tyler's hand in mine, our bodies angled close on the couch. You couldn't see our faces clearly, but it was enough to spark questions, enough to start rumors. The caption read, "Didn't take long." No name, no accusation, just implication, and it was public. I sat back, my stomach dropping. She really did it. "She's hurt," Tyler said quietly. "Yeah, and now she wants to hurt you back." "Us," he corrected. That word hit me like a spark in the dark. Us. But we weren't us yet, not really. We hadn't figured out what we were. We were still learning how to be in the same space without our nerves taking over. And now, this. I stood up. You need to talk to her. I know. But you also need to talk to me. I looked at him, willing him to see how serious this was. You don't get to pull me into this and then retreat. If you're scared, say it. If you're confused, fine. But if you want to keep pretending this isn't happening, then I'm walking out that door right now. He stared at me, frozen, and then he stood, slowly, and walked toward me. I'm not pretending, he said, barely above a whisper. I'm scared. Yeah, I don't know what this means, but I'm not letting you walk away. He reached for my hand again, and this time I didn't hesitate. That night, we stayed up late, sitting in silence, letting our fingers speak for us while the storm outside passed. But I couldn't stop wondering, if that picture was already out there, how long before someone else recognized us? I didn't realize how fast things could spread until Monday. By the time I walked into class, the air felt different, thicker. Some people glanced up when I entered, others whispered and looked away too quickly. A few even smirked, like they were in on something I wasn't supposed to know. I kept walking, heart pounding, pretending like nothing had changed. But I felt it. That shift. That quiet judgment that settles into the room before anyone says a word. When I sat down, my phone buzzed. A message from Tyler. You okay? I stared at the screen for a few seconds before typing. People know. 3 dots blinked, disappeared, then came back. I know. I'm sorry. He hadn't even posted anything. Neither had I. But it didn't matter. The picture had done its job. Rumors didn't need permission to grow. At lunch, I found a table in the far corner and sat alone. I watched the door, half hoping Tyler would walk in and sit beside me. But he didn't. Maybe he was avoiding it. Maybe he didn't want to be seen. Or maybe, worst of all, he regretted it. I stared down at my tray, no appetite left, when a familiar voice cut through the noise. Is this seat taken? I looked up. It was Tyler, holding 2 trays, and looking directly at me. My heart jumped into my throat. A few people turned their heads as he sat across from me, placed 1 tray in front of me, and said, I know you skipped breakfast. I blinked. You didn't have to. I wanted to. His voice was calm, firm, but behind his eyes I saw it. He was nervous too. I heard people talking, I said quietly. He nodded. Me too. You're not hiding. No, he said. Because I'm tired of hiding from myself. That sentence settled between us like a lifeline. He took a deep breath. Look, I don't know exactly what this is yet. I don't have a label for it. But I know that when I kissed you, it felt real. And when Mia posted that photo, it scared me. Not because people would know, but because they'd ruin something before we even got a chance to understand it. I didn't know I'd been holding my breath until I finally let it go. You're not confused? I asked. I'm confused about a lot of things, he admitted, but not about you. I couldn't help but smile. And that's when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A girl at a nearby table had her phone out, camera aimed right at us. I looked at Tyler. We're being watched. He turned, met her eyes directly, and said loud enough for her to hear, Then let them watch. The girl blinked, flushed red, and lowered her phone. Tyler turned back to me. I don't care what they say, he said. I care about you. That would have been enough for me. But then he reached across the table and laced his fingers with mine, right there, in the middle of the crowded cafeteria. Every whisper stopped, every glance sharpened. But he didn't let go. Neither did I. After school, as we walked to his car, the sky darkened with the threat of another storm. It felt familiar now. Storms and us, like the universe loved giving us dramatic timing. Tyler opened the door for me, then paused. "Can I take you out?" he asked. I raised an eyebrow. "Like a date?" "Yeah, like a real one." "I thought we were already halfway there." He smiled. "Then let's make it official." The rain started falling as I slid into the passenger seat, but this time I didn't feel cold. I felt safe, excited, seen. That night, we didn't play video games. We didn't even turn on the TV. We just sat on his couch, side by side, fingers intertwined. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a secret. But as my head leaned on his shoulder, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the message. "You and Tyler made it to the school gossip page, front and center." Tyler looked over. "You okay?" I met his eyes and smiled. "Yeah, let them talk." The next few weeks weren't perfect. There were stares in the hallway, whispers in the locker room. A few people unfollowed us, but none of it mattered. Not really. Tyler held my hand anyway. He kissed me behind the gym after class, laughed louder when I teased him, and never once acted like he was ashamed. He showed up for me. We talked more. Deep talks, messy talks. I told him about the years I spent hiding. He told me about how he never questioned until he looked at me that way and couldn't ignore it anymore. And then, one night on his rooftop, under a sky full of stars, he pulled me close and said the words I hadn't let myself dream about. "I'm not scared anymore." I looked at him, heart racing, and he smiled. "Because I'm in love with you." I didn't say anything. I just kissed him. And this time, nothing in me wanted to run. Love doesn't always show up the way we expect. Sometimes it starts in silence. Two best friends, a game controller, and feelings we try to hide. But when we stop running, when we choose truth over fear, something beautiful happens. If you've ever been afraid to say what you feel, if you've ever wondered what could happen if you took the risk, this story is for you. Because sometimes the greatest love starts with just pressing play. If this story moved you, take a second to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. And tell us in the comments, have you ever fallen for someone when you least expected it? We'll see you in the next story.